cancel the kitchen scraps for lepers and orphans. No more merciful beheadings. And call off Christmas.
Oh, no, we can't. We can't, Sheriff. We can't cancel Christmas. Now, canceling the merciful beheadings, does that mean the violent beheadings are still on? It's kind of scary, isn't it? And welcome to Christmas Eve. It is Christmas Eve on the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in once again for my friend. He's on holiday. You know how this works. All the A players get the week of Christmas off, and I'm happy to be here, thrilled to be here. Going to try and get to everything. My goodness, there was more news yesterday after we left the air, and more news again this morning, and some of it really good. So we will try and cover as much as possible for you to share it with you. And you're welcome to join us. 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. A lot of Christmas music being played in and out of the show, what we call bumper music. And we were talking about Christmas music that needs to go away because the question was posed on CNN the other day. And Scott Jennings, who I do appreciate, Scott Jennings, I think he's a really smart guy, interesting cat. His book, by the way, was terrific. You'll read it over the break if you're on a Christmas break in a matter of days, and I recommend it. Along with Senator Kennedy's book was one of the more entertaining books of the year. I had a whole list of political books to get through. I got through, I think, 10 out of my 12, so almost got through one a month. But the Scott Jennings book's very good, and Scott Jennings would like to see Paul McCartney's Wonderful Christmas Time go away. And I think my wife agrees with Scott Jennings because she said all he keeps saying is Wonderful Christmas Time, but it's not much else. So if there is a Christmas song you'd like to see put on an iceberg and pushed out to sea, let us know. But anything else, we'll talk about anything and everything today, and there is a whole bunch of us, a whole bunch of topics for us to discuss, including how Democrats will find a topic, leap upon it, and then when it looks like the general population doesn't agree with them, they will distance themselves from it and say, well, there are some people out there who agree with this. You know, they'll wildly affiliate with a topic and say this is a war crime, like blowing up the narco-terror boats, and then say, well, other people are saying, instead of taking responsibility for their opinions, which they don't. And it's funny because they don't think we keep track of this stuff. But there are all kinds of people, like our friends at MRC and Newsbusters, who put together the montages. So we can see that they just have no real spines.
The Republican heads of the House and Senate Armed Services Committees say they're satisfied with the administration's answers on that September 2nd strike that some have called a war crime.
A September 2nd double-tap strike, some say could be a war crime.
Some are calling the strike a war crime.
I mean, we have a Secretary of Defense. There's some who are accusing of a war crime.
Yeah, I don't want to stand up and say I'm accusing him, but there's some people. Some people in the hallways are saying it. There's people out there. Trust me, there's a whole bunch of some peoples.
Some people are using the phrase when they think the question of, is this a war crime?
A lethal attack on a suspected drug boat that some are calling a war crime.
The September 2nd strike, some are calling a potential war crime.
That double tap strike that caused so much controversy that some lawmakers think may show the U.S. committing a war crime.
Some lawmakers now, see, over at CNN, it's not just some people, some lawmakers. Would you like to elucidate? Would you like to share with the class who are these lawmakers who you call some lawmakers? No, they won't, because no one is stepping up and saying, hey, that's a war crime.
The initial strike raising allegations from some lawmakers about a potential war crime.
The Defense Department continues to push back against claims the secondary strike could be a war crime.
Killing people, sometimes killing survivors who appear to be unarmed and innocent based on what we know, which led to the talk of a war crime probe.
Then you got Trump's deadly boat strikes. They are facing growing congressional scrutiny and talk of possible war crimes.
Possible. Some people. Could be. It's crazy. It's like listening to that scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off that talked about how some people saw Ferris collapse at the mall. Sometimes when I'm listening to the mainstream media, I feel like I'm hearing that moment.
My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty serious that some people think it's a war crime. Some people. You people. Some people. Give me a break. It is so infuriating. But I'm glad the folks at MRC constantly tracking down all this stuff and pulling it together for us so we can push it back in the faces of the far left. I mentioned earlier that yesterday was Festivus. I hope you celebrated Festivus, the holiday for the rest of us. Interesting story that has now popped up on the origins of that episode of Seinfeld, which created this fake holiday. It actually was something in a family of one of the writers, that this father, who was almost as abusive as George Costanza's father, created Festivus because he was kind of a crazy person, and they vowed never to talk about it. But it came up at a party anecdotally, and Seinfeld demanded that they put it in an episode, and this guy could either write it or somebody else was going to do it, but was too funny not to, so he did write it. And he was kind of embarrassed about it. Really interesting. But Festivus has become the day that Rand Paul puts out his report every year, the Festivus report that shows waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was kind of hoping, as I'm sure you were, that after Doge became part of the administration, that waste, fraud, and abuse would basically go away, but it doesn't seem like it has. The report may show some reductions, but there's still a whole bunch of really irritating and aggravating things. For example, you and I spent $2.5 million from the National Science Foundation to promote $2.5 million of our tax dollars went to promoting insects as, quote, food for humans. That's really where your money went, to create a push in terms of advertising for people to eat food for humans, insects, of course. And I'm wondering how much of Bill Gates's various interests were behind that. How much behind the anti-meat people was pushing that. The Department of Health and Human Services shelled out $1.5 million for what the report claims is called TikTok therapy. $1.5 million for TikTok therapy. Now, what is TikTok therapy? It's using celebrity influencers to discourage drug use, but in this case, it was only in the Latino community. So we thought it was a good idea to spend $1.5 million to pay celebrity TikTok influencers to discourage drug use in Latino communities. I think the money is much better spent blowing up the drug boats. That's me, though. I'm just a simple man. Another $40 million also went to campaigns to have influencers, and there's no more embarrassing job title to me than the title of influencer. If you introduce yourself to me and I say, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm an influencer. I might vomit on your shoes. Not that I can vomit on command, but I might be tempted to try and do that. An influencer. I'm an influencer. That's what I do. Well, how about you make something other than try and make opinions? $40 million plus went to influencer campaigns urging minority groups to get COVID vaccines. Now, this was last year. After the lockdowns have ended, after all mandates have ended, which proves the adage that once a government spending program is created, it almost never goes away. It's almost impossible to kill. Fast forward 30 years, are we going to still be seeing $40 million being spent on influencer campaigns urging minority groups to get COVID vaccines? Probably. unless we root it out and rip it out and burn the roots of whatever's left. $40 million of your money. $40 million. It's a lot of money. And then I see this story, which is infuriating to me. This is all from the Festivus report that comes out of Senator Rand Paul's office every year. A lot of people not happy with Rand Paul because he's against the kinetic strikes on the narco-terror boats. I'm for the kinetic strikes, and I disagree with Rand Paul on this, but I love his addiction to trying to stop waste, fraud, and abuse because, look, our debt is such. We're approaching $40 trillion in debt. It is unsustainable. In the report, we paid, you and I paid more than $1 million for a Veterans Affairs study that forced teenagers to binge drink before killing them. Now, before you freak out, it's not teenage humans. It's teenage ferrets. I'm not joking. This is actually from the report. $1 million was spent on a Veterans Affairs study that forced teenaged ferrets, first of all, who knows how old a ferret is, whose job is that, and how much are we paying to figure that out, to binge drink alcohol, and then we would kill them. And why? What is the purpose of this waste of $1 million? I know there are people going, Mike, the budget is trillions of dollars. $1 million here, $1 million there. What does it matter? Every penny matters. The National Institutes of Health, really, this infuriates me when we see some of the spending here. The National Institutes of Health spent $5.2 million giving dogs cocaine. $5.2 million to give cocaine to dogs. Another $13.8 million went to those Beagle experiments that we heard about during the Fauci era. This is all in the report. It's disturbing when you think about it. We know there is medical experimentation on animals that's been going on a long time. I know that our military actually has trained some of its surgeons to learn how to do emergency surgery on the battlefield, and they would frequently use goats in order to do this, and you can understand that. But I don't know what reason the National Institutes of Health would have to be giving $5.2 million in cocaine to dogs, and then the $13.8 million in the Beagle experiments, which are so horrific. I don't want to talk about them on Christmas Eve. I won't sleep tonight. And elsewhere, the monkeys that had metal head posts screwed into their skulls to keep their heads in place as they were forced to play Plinko-style video games. We spent $14.6 million on that. Infuriating. Infuriating beyond belief. And yet it's all part of this ongoing waste, fraud, and abuse exposed in the Festivus report, up to $1.6 trillion. Imagine what we could do with $1.6 trillion. I'm going to get back to this. I see a couple of calls coming in. I want to grab a couple of calls from you, the Vast and Unpaid Resource Department. Let's go to Kent in Oklahoma. Hello, Kent. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Merry Christmas to you. I have a song to get rid of.
Okay.
I actually have several, but at the top of the list is Santa Baby.
Now, which one? Because, there have been a lot. The original, I think, was Eartha Kitt.
No, it's the old one. This ain't Eartha Kitt, I don't think. Been around since, I want to say, the 60s, maybe the 70s.
I know.
Trying to sound like Marilyn Monroe.
Madonna put one out in the 80s that was on...
This is older than that, I believe.
So it's probably the Eartha Kitt version. It might be. But you just would like...
It really doesn't matter. It needs to go.
So all Santa babies need to go. Okay.
And the next one would have to be the 12 Days of Christmas. It's too long, and it's redundant.
Now, Kent, I have to share a quick story with you. I come from a very large family, one of 9 kids. I know Chris is one of 5 boys. We were 9 kids. We had 5 boys and 4 girls. And our families would get together in Chicago at Christmas, and the families would do like a talent show. Every family would have somebody getting up performing. I have a brother who writes for the Wall Street Journal named Greg, and Greg is a pianist as well, composer. He played the 12 Days of Christmas on the piano with no vocal accompaniment. Do you know how torturous that is? I mean, think of it. Da, 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 da. It just goes on and on. It should be against the Geneva Convention to play the 12 Days of Christmas without vocal accompaniment. I'm just saying. I rant because I can. But I'll add that to the list, Ken. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you and yours. We'll get back to the phones and back to the infuriating list of the Festivus waste list from Rand Paul. It's Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. Just trying to get to everything today, as well as have a little Christmas fun on Christmas Eve, and so many of you joining the conversation today. We'll get back to the waste, fraud, and abuse and the Festivus report, but I want to talk to a couple of you on the phones. Marty in the Ozarks. Hello, Marty. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Thank you for taking my call. This time of the year, I think we all need to pause and give thanks for not being burdened by what might have been. I would then also like to say a quick shout out to Al Gore. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Marty, well done. We will not be unburdened by what might have been. Thank you very much. Well done. Let's go to Sue in Damascus, Maryland. Hello, Sue. Merry Christmas. What's up?
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, too. I was listening to you talking about how if someone identifies as an influencer,
yes,
how it makes you feel.
Yes.
And I got something worse than an influencer.
Really?
Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama. He called himself a community organizer, and that gave him enough credibility to be president of the United States. And I was over at Mount Vernon for the Candlelight Tour. And you look at this guy, Obama, who can't pronounce a Marine corpsman. He calls it a corpsman. And then thinking about the wonderful George Washington in our history, and we let a moron like that. And by the way, he is not the first black president.
As it was Bill Clinton, you're right. But thank you for that, Sue. Community organizer, worse than influencer. It's Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show. And a merry, merry, merry Christmas to you and yours. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show. Christmas Eve, we have about an hour and a half left together to try and get through all the news of the day, which we will, I'm sure. We always do. You're welcome to join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. The very brilliant Jasmine handling the phones today, so be kind, be nice, be polite. We had a caller who left us a message saying that the Grinch this Christmas is Adam Schiff. Have to be careful how I say that name. Adam Schiff for brains, because I think that's what he has. I can't believe we call him Senator Schiff. I just wish that the auto pen pardons for the January 6th committee would be all considered to be invalid, and all those folks who served on the January 6th committee and played some pretty evil tricks on the truth would have to lawyer up. Whether or not they ever spend a day in a courtroom, they'd have to lawyer up. Be a cost to them, like was exacted on General Michael Flynn. It should be shared with them. Anyway, we have a lot to get to today, including your calls, your thoughts as well. Any Christmas songs you want to be retired, we could talk about that. But I was going through the Festivus report from Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul, who a lot of people are mad at him for his take on the narco-terror boats. I don't have a problem with Senator Rand Paul having an opinion. It's how this whole thing works. You're voted into office to represent either the people of your state as a senator or your district as a member of the House. And Rand Paul is typically very libertarian, which means, he kind of wants us to keep to ourselves. Kind of wants big freedom, small government, et cetera, et cetera. But he does Rand Paul puts out this report every year, the Festivus report, which covers government waste, fraud, and abuse. And this year's report came out yesterday. It shows $1.6 trillion in your money, in my money, that if we hadn't spent it, our national debt would be a lot less. We borrow some ridiculous amount of money every second in order to pay down our national debt, the interest on our national debt. $1.2 trillion to cover our national debt, just the interest on it. That's stunning to me. One of the biggest expenditures we have every year as a country is to cover the interest on our national debt. Just maddening. I shared with you some of the stuff that was coming out of the National Institutes of Health and the money, the tens of millions of dollars we spend on experiments. But there are other things that are equally as irritating. Not as large of an expenditure, but you just got to shake your head and go, okay, why? Why are we doing this? The State Department, before the Trump administration came in, forked over $244,252 for a children's climate change cartoon in Pakistan. And we spend another $1.5 million promoting American movies and video games overseas. Why? Why aren't the movie companies, aren't they private industries? Do we need, as the U.S. government, to promote a business, Hollywood, much less one that pretty much hates us all the time? Everything we hear out of Hollywood is America stinks. Not everything. I exaggerate to clarify. It's called hyperbole. But the reality is we don't get a lot of love out of Hollywood. And Hollywood gets a lot of love out of this country. The numbers of people who've become wealthy, multimillionaires, because they work in an industry that tells them where to stand, what to say, what to wear, etc. It's staggering. They ought to get down every day. And thank God for the America that they get to live in. But I don't understand why we have to promote Hollywood around the world. Why does my tax dollar that I send to the government have to go to promoting anything that a private industry is doing in another country? No, I'm never going to sign on for that. Not at all. What did we play yesterday? We played the clip of Richard Gere is mad at Trump. Of course, you had the director of Avatar, James what's-his-name. He's mad at Trump. He's furious with Trump. You have Rosie O'Donnell, who is supposed to be taking a break from social media. She's mad at Trump. You had Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond. He's mad. He's furious with President Trump. So why are we promoting their industry? In the words of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., why? It makes no sense. It's a lot of money, $1.5 million. Back home, Northwestern University, yes, a bedroom community to Chicago, where the Chris Plant Show airs on the great WLS. Northwestern University, where I taught briefly one summer, received $3.3 million to build, quote, scientific neighborhoods, close quote. Scientific neighborhoods? Have you been to Evanston? Have you seen what's going on around that? We need scientific neighborhoods. They also installed, quote, safe space ambassadors. I guess that was a job. That's right up there with community organizers and internet influencers, social media influencers, safe space ambassadors. What's your job? I'm a safe space ambassador. Really? You're getting paid by whom? The taxpayers. Through Northwestern University, $3.3 million. And what were they supposed to do? They were supposed to be there dismantling systemic racism. That's what these committees that the safe space ambassadors were forming were supposed to be dismantling systemic racism. And Northwestern University, like most of these big universities, like most of the Ivy Leaguers, which we should talk about as well, because there's a new study. The New York Post has a story about just how many members of the faculty at Yale University's undergrad departments are Republicans. You'll be stunned to know. But Northwestern University sits on a multi-billion-dollar endowment. Did they really need $3.3 million from the taxpayers to build scientific neighborhoods, to install safe space ambassadors whose job it was to dismantle systemic racism? Boy, talk about a load of woke nonsense. Yeah, this is where I really want Doge to come back. I want Doge to come back in full force. Elon, come back. You and Donald need to make up. We need to get your buddy Testiculos Grandes back in there. The guy that got beat up in D.C., he needs to be back in doing all those Doge purges, and we need to shut down all these NGOs and cut off all this money that's being sent around the world to make climate change cartoons in Pakistan. Maddening. The EV chargers are also in this. The Festivus report covers the Biden area infrastructure program. Remember, $7.5 billion was approved to put in electric vehicle chargers, despite the fact that in many places you go to, in terms of gas stations and or convenience stores, at least in the eastern part of the country, you will see electric vehicle chargers that have now been put in the parking lots of these stores. And these convenience store companies are wise. For example, the Wawa company, which is all up and down the East Coast, when they put an electric vehicle charger in their parking lot, in the back of the parking lot, they'll put 7 or 8 of them. Guess what? Those people plug in. They're going to be there for 20 minutes. And what do they do when they're there for 20 minutes? They come in the store and they spend money. Capitalism would have solved this problem. But no, the Biden administration had to take $7.5 billion. And they only built 68 stations that are actually up and running nationwide. Just over 1 electric vehicle charging station per state. $7.5 billion spent to build 68 stations. Solving a problem that didn't need to be solved. Over at the Department of Health and Human Services, they have been credibly accused of just blowing out $22.6 billion on migrant programs. Now, think about this. We all know there are people that want to come to this country as refugees. There are a few people that I'm sure all of us would say, okay, you're in a bad situation. Your country stinks on ice. You want to come here. You pledge to assimilate. Yes, we'll give you a shot. We'll set you up a little bit. We'll get you started. But really, $22.6 billion? And what did that money get spent on? Furniture, car repairs, down payments for homes? Seriously, furniture, car repairs, down payments on homes. Our debt is $40 trillion, almost $40 trillion. It's getting there pretty quickly. We borrow $75,000 every second. Every single second, we, the United States government, borrow $75,000 to pay our debt, not to pay down our debt. We blew out $1.6 trillion in waste based on what Senator Rand Paul's report has shown. $1.6 trillion. If you cut that off, you certainly reduce the amount of debt we have to service every year, and you start seeing maybe the national debt go down. And maybe the tariffs are going to add to the reduction in our debt as well. But every year, how many years are we going to have this report come out? It never seems to get any better. Doge is the answer, in my opinion. But thank you, Senator Paul, for that. We may disagree on the narco-terror boats, but I agree with you that the waste, fraud, and abuse should never be off the front page. Should never. However, we do have record of Democrats at one point actually being against waste, fraud, and abuse, especially waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare and Medicaid. I'm old enough to remember when we had Nancy Pelosi, and I think it was Chuck Schumer, and maybe even Bernie Sanders were actually outspoken critics of the waste, fraud, and abuse. Don't take my word for it. Take their words. They were the ones who absolutely came out and said, hey, you know what? We've got waste, fraud, and abuse. We have to stop it. It must end. This must absolutely stop. And like I said, we saved the tape.
We cannot keep our promises on Medicare. We simply must make the cuts in waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare so that the benefits and the premiums are untouched.
She's saying we have to make the cuts in waste cuts. Nancy Pelosi talking about making cuts in waste, fraud, and abuse.
We owe it to our seniors. We owe it to our country.
There is an enormous amount of waste and fraud and abuse in this government. When there is waste and fraud, you have an administration who should also be on top of that situation.
Yeah, they should. They should be cutting it. Thank you, Bertie. Thank you for that. Well, Schumer has to weigh in, too.
If we're going to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare, it does mean we're going to cut some of that out. And when I hear my friend Dave Camp say you cannot cut money out of Medicare, you can't just get up there and say we don't want to cut anything out of Medicare. We want to cut the bad stuff and keep the good stuff.
It's funny how they changed, isn't it? Really interesting how they'd be stunned to hear what they themselves have said. Fascinating. It's Michael Opelka. I want to talk to you, and I see Chris is on the phones from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, how's it going, Mike? Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. They only care about waste, fraud, and abuse when it's other people's money, or when they're wasting.
When it's their money.
Right. That's right. Don't waste our stock money, our stock gains. Yeah. So I had a Christmas carol I wanted to get rid of, but I also wanted to finish it first. So you remember the Jeffrey Epstein carol? If you like, I can kind of sing it for you.
I'm not familiar with the Jeffrey Epstein carol. Educate me, please, Chris.
So you've heard it. It's beginning to look a lot like Epstein. Didn't kill himself. Well, so ever since I've been hearing that, 3, 4, or 5 years now, I don't know. It's like the shave and haircut thing for me. It's not finished.
Okay.
So I finished it.
All right.
Security guard asleep. Cameras on the blink. Smells like ark inside.
Wow.
So what do you think?
Very good. Did you say Arkansas?
Yeah.
Like Arkansas, Hillary Clinton, maybe that's what happened there. That's very good, Chris. Very good and very, very succinct. So often we see parodies that drift off into the abyss of crazy confusion. But that was very tight. Well done, sir. Well done. I salute that. I think we'll retire it and honor it at the same time. Thank you. It's Mike Opelka. You want to join us? You can. 888-630-9625. Do you have radioactive shrimp and sausage full of metal? Well, there's been some recalls. I'll explain just around the corner. It is the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show. Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas Eve. Mike Opelka in again for Chris. Thanks for being here. I mentioned this earlier. If you're getting ready to have your Christmas feast, You need to also be smart about it. The U.S. FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has expanded a recall of radioactive shrimp, which is kind of like probably a band name from the 80s. The FDA has said they've expanded a frozen shrimp recall due to possible potential radioactive contamination. Not good. It's not good to have shrimp that can cook itself. They were sold nationwide under the Market 32 and Waterfront Bistro brands. And why do they think that there's a problem? Well, they may have come in contact with cesium-137, kind of a radioactive substance. If you bought your shrimp at the Price Chopper or Jewel Osco or Albertsons, Safeway, Lucky Supermarket, you might need to check it. They found the shrimp. The FDA discovered the shrimp on shelves in Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, pretty much about half the country. So they were sold in 1 pound and 2 pound bags. You need to be smart. Raw shrimp that may have been exposed to a little bit of cesium-137. But as you know, a little bit of cesium goes a very long way for a very long time. Never a good idea. And on the other side of things, nearly a ton of sausage has been recalled after somebody found an inch-long metal scrap in one of the sausages. The Department of Agriculture announced a recall of nearly a ton of kielbasa. You don't want your kielbasa to put a damper on the holiday party. So the identified problem is from a Portland-based company, and they said they had a consumer complaint about this. Sold nationwide, direct to consumer. So if you bought your kielbasa direct from the manufacturer, you probably already know about it. But I think the big worry is the shrimp, because radioactive shrimp. If your shrimp is glowing, if you walk into the kitchen, don't turn on the lights, and the shrimp is glowing. Probably a bad idea, but let's be safe. 1 more hour to go. We have some fun to have with you. Democrats say the darndest things coming up just around the corner. Join us, 888-630-9625. It's Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show.